Hello, welcome to That Vid Blaster Guy. I'm Tom Sinclair. Glad to have you on the show with us today. If you're watching live, we're so glad to have you. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're glad to have you there too. The only problem is you don't get to be in the chat. So we'd love to have you come by and watch us live. We're live Wednesdays at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast of USA, 8 o'clock in the evening if you're in England. And sometime in the morning on Thursday, if you are in Australia. So look us up. Figured out that time stuff. I'm just not good with time stuff. Anyway, we're glad to have you. It's going to be an interesting show today. Today's sort of a smorgasbord show. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The premise of the show is that one guy with one PC can do one pretty darn good broadcast. We were talking about that in pre-show today and how to do it all on one PC, And there are two reasons why I think you would want to do it all on one PC, and that's why I limit myself to one to do this show. One is because you're on a budget and you got one PC. And, you might be able to add a little bit here and a little bit there, but you can't go out and buy another PC or two more PCs or whatever it would take to do what some of the big boys are doing. I mean, some of these guys have got, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 PCs working all different aspects of the show, which, of course, obviously adds a lot of complexity to it. But in some cases probably adds some redundancy to it, too. So if one goes down, they can shift another one in to carry its load. With one PC, you're kind of doing everything in one place. All your eggs are in one basket, as it was. So you have to be careful about what you do because I don't know if you could hear it. I can certainly hear it here today. In the show opening, there was a little glitch in the audio. And that glitch got introduced last week sometime. I think a driver somewhere got updated. And lo and behold, I got a glitch in my audio, and I'm going to have to go in and uninstall some drivers and try to figure out, was it a Behringer driver that got updated or something else? Sometimes it's drivers that aren't even associated with audio that caused a problem. And I know there was a problem I had a while back, probably last summer, with USB 3. And I got a USB 3 driver update, and then my audio on the USB 2 ports that I have my mixers hooked into, that all of a sudden went real glitchy. So I'll be looking for something like that. But with one PC, the other reason why you would want to limit yourself to one PC is if you're doing something portable and you're going on the road with a laptop. Last Friday, as some of you that watch the show regularly may recall, I kind of started broadcasting soccer for our local high school soccer team. I had boys that played on the team, and so it was a labor of love to go out and broadcast that. And even if we didn't have a big audience, there would inevitably be that one person that was watching overseas that got to watch their son or daughter play soccer, or that grandma out in Texas or California that could tune in and watch and feel like they weren't quite so far removed. And so that kind of, warmed the heart and made it really worthwhile from that sense. Didn't have a huge audience, but it was an important audience. Well, this past Friday, even though my boys are grown, they continue to ask me to come back and help them with the soccer broadcast. So last Friday I showed up out at the soccer stadium and actually used borrowed equipment, which was really interesting. I generally use my own stuff. But they've started broadcasting other sports there at the high school, so now they have their own PC, their own laptop with VidBlaster on it, of course, and a couple of cameras and a mixer, and I think they're using a Verizon MiFi device. That's a wireless hotspot to bring internet into the PC, so they basically have it wherever they are on the road. So we pulled that in, and we were using a couple of easy caps for the cameras. And had a couple of dads in there to help with the broadcast. It was a lot of fun. We actually did 2 games that night. And, you can throw people into a situation where they don't know a whole lot of what they're doing, and they can almost pull it off. We had a couple of teenagers that were running the cameras, and they did okay. We'll have to talk to them and help them kind of get we'll coach them up, as they say. We'll coach them up for the next broadcast so that they learn you can't move the cameras real quickly. You've got to just everything you do is slow and smooth. You zoom in slowly, you zoom out slowly, you move the camera slowly. And as you can, anticipate the action. Soccer, of course, the ball can go left, right, up, down, close or far, almost instantaneously, whereas some of the other sports are a little bit more predictable. Soccer's probably the hardest one that I've ever broadcast. But that was on one PC. It was on one PC, and it was really easy to move because we just had the laptop. I mean, yeah, we had a mouse and a connection, and then we had cameras and a mixer and all of that, but you're going to have that regardless. When I was doing previous broadcasts of soccer, not let's see, this is 14, so probably the last time I did a broadcast using my own equipment was 2012. And I would take the PC that I'm using right here in the studio, which is just a little cube that I attached a handle to the top of, and a couple of monitors on a dual monitor stand, and of course a keyboard and a mouse. Well, that's a lot of equipment just right there with just the PC. And then had a little wireless card, a little Wi-Fi card that plugged into the PC, and had my own Verizon wireless hotspot. And then, of course, all the camera and mixer setup, which is sort of what they modeled theirs on what I was using. But that ended up taking, an hour to set it all up. And a lot of it was just getting the PC properly configured. And then you had to tear it all down when the broadcast was over. So a laptop is definitely, and with the i7 processor in the laptops and a good fast hard drive, you can really do a lot. Now, you probably can't do the slow motion instant replay. And the more I do that, the more I realize that in order for that to be effective, that really needs to be, I hate to say it, needs to be offloaded to a second PC. Because an operator frequently can't keep up with switching cameras, changing scores, overlaying graphics, all that kind of stuff during an event, and manage the slow motion instant replay as well. At least I'm not good enough to do it. I was able to do it with replay number 2, which of course, as you remember, is that 30-second rolling replay, full speed. And that's okay in a pinch, and that's what we tend to use for soccer. Because the action is pretty immediate. Anyway, as we were talking in pre-show about the one-man, one PC concept, one of the things that I've recently acquired in order to try to help extend that, and let's see if I can switch over to this other cam for just a second, is this little device right here. This is an AverMedia Live Gamer Portable, and it is about the size of a large cell phone with case, and it will do several different functions. Now, the way I want to use it is maybe not exactly the way it was intended, but I think it's going to work. I got this the other day. I actually had hoped to have it sooner, but it got held up in West Columbia, South Carolina for 4 days in an ice storm. So we got it here. We brushed the ice off of it, and we're going to give it a go. It's got a series of inputs and outputs on the side. You can see 2 HDMI ports, 2 audios. One is audio in, audio out, and then a proprietary AV dongle right here for component in and composite in. And then on one end, it's got a connection for USB to the PC. On the other end, it will take a Class 10 SD card. And then on the fourth side, it has a switch that allows you to switch it from using it with a PC to using it separately with a game console like a Xbox 360 or a PS2 or PS3. I'm not sure which one, but I'm not a PS guy, so I'm a VidBlaster guy, of course. So that's the device. The concept that I'm working with, and I think the device is going to work well with one or two ways, is that this device will record. it will record the stream. And I think it was intended for gamers that wanted to record their game. Now, why somebody would want to record a video game is just absolutely beyond me. I mean, it's fun to play, and it's okay to kind of watch somebody that's in the same room play it, but to watch a recording of a game that somebody else has made, I don't know. It just is just beyond me. Unless you're in a really high tech game. I mean, a real a multiplayer game, and you want to learn somebody else's proclivities or whatever you want to call it. But to be able to record in a one-man, one PC situation could be significant. Recording does take some CPU power. And if you're in a one-man, one PC situation, your CPU is gonna be taxed because you're doing a lot of different things with it. So if you can offload some of the activity to another device, then you may see a boost in your CPU power. Now, what does that mean realistically? I'm running an i7, a 2600K i7 processor today. It's not overclocked. I keep meaning to do that, and I haven't done it. So it's standard. I think it's a 3.2 or 3.4 gigahertz processor. I am streaming at 864 by 480, 30 frames a second to Decast. I am recording the same resolution to the recorder. I am streaming using Wirecast as my encoder and streamer as opposed to Flash Media Live Encoder because I think it helps out a little bit on CPU. Basically, it's just video in, audio into Wirecast, and then Wirecast is doing the streaming. So Wirecast is pretty light in terms of its CPU use. I've also got two different effects modules going. Both of them are chroma key. Now, chroma key is pretty much of a CPU hog, and it claims a lot of resources. And right now, with all of that going on, I am averaging 75% on my CPU. Now that's the average of all eight cores or threads. And I'm looking at the diagnostics module here in my VidBlaster Broadcast Edition, and I can see each individual thread, and they're pretty smooth. I don't see any of them that are pegging out, but they're all pretty full. They're all at that 70%, 75%, maybe a bump over that on occasion. The CPU, well, I'll tell you what. Let me just capture the screen and show you what I see. We can do that. Let's see here. Let's move that out of the way. And we'll put that right there. Excuse me for a second. It's these things that I just never think about. I get into the subject, and then how in the world am I going to get out of the subject? So let's just capture all of that. And we'll bring it up to the screen so that you can see it. So this is the standard VidBlaster CPU usage. It's been around since the early days. And the red line there is 75%. And that represents, you shouldn't go above that. In a perfect world, I'm happier going, where did my CPU monitor go? Let's see, let's put it back out there, CPU usage, and drag it back in position. It dropped down almost to 50% right in here, and it disappeared because it generally pops up automatically when you hit the red line. And you can see back over here, I was flirting with the red line quite a bit. Flirting with it. Yes, I was. And so now it's popped in here. It's dropped down. See, why did the CPU usage go down? I think it had something to do with the screen capture that I made right about here, and VidBlaster's activities focused more on screen capture than on something else that it had been previously. You can see the diagnostics module here with the 8 different threads on the CPU, and they're all, well, kind of at that midpoint right there. You can see that number 1, which is really number 0, has a peak every second or second and a half. And that's in my PC. Now, it's been that way for probably a year. Let me put it this way. The first time I noticed it was probably a year ago. So, and I keep trying to find out. It's some service or system activity that's going on periodically. And it doesn't seem to be something that I can undo, but it also doesn't seem to be impacting. In fact, I've told VidBlaster, hey, stay out of core 0 right there, because we don't want you to get involved in this thing that seems to be peaking pretty periodically. So we're not going to worry about that one, because VidBlaster's not using that core right now. So with one man, one PC, and my goal to stay below this red line, I find that I want to try to offload as many things as I possibly can, but not offload them to another PC, but rather a different function of some kind. For example, this device, the Live Gamer Portable, has the capability, supposedly, and I'm going to tell you for sure as soon as I can get it to work, to record or to stream, to encode and stream. Now that's going to be interesting, because recording and streaming, depending on your resolution, what's going on, they can, one or the other can use a lot of CPU usage, a lot of CPU power. I mean, if you do it in percentages, and you can save 5%, that's huge. So to take something like this and to, oh, look at that, the chroma key goes right through it. I guess that's just the reflection off the black. Will it do it on that black? Yeah, there you go. Let me put it down here. Oh, that's neat. Has nothing to do with anything. But it has the capability to stream, and it has a separate capability to record. Now that has all sorts of potential. Now it does involve, it's going to involve, lots of cables and cords. This is an HDMI, a little short HDMI cable from the back of the video card to the Live Gamer Portable. This is a converter that converts HDMI to VGA, so I can plug it into my monitor, because the audio in, audio out, the video in, video out allows me to simply attach this right on the cable where my monitor would be connected. Now, funny story about this. I was trying to get this hooked up for you guys today. Again, it was late getting here because Dr. Charles Campbell held it up in his ice storm up in West Columbia, South Carolina. But when it did come in, I realized, real quickly that I was going to have HDMI out on my graphics card in my PC. And my current graphics card only had VGA out, DVI out, and DisplayPort out. But it had to be, I guess this thing would also take, it would take component through its special little proprietary port right there. But I don't have component out either. So fortunately I had an extra video card on the shelf from a computer that I had built and then taken apart and was experimenting with. And that one had HDMI on it, so I popped that one in. I say popped it in. I put it in after taking the other one out, and of course had to modify the card a little bit to get it to fit. It didn't want to quite fit in the slots. You know how that goes sometimes. Have to take a couple screws out, move a port, that type of thing. And got it hooked up and installed, and realized after about 30-45 minutes that the card was not capable of supplying video to 3 monitors. It was only going to do 2. The fact that it had 3 ports on it was just flexibility, not capability. So depending on what kind of monitors you had, it would hook up. And it did too, beautifully, but I was counting on 3 so that I could use 2 of them here for the broadcast, and then the third one would be where VidBlaster would go output and could output to that card so that the AverMedia device could capture that and use it as its input in order to be able to record or stream the show today. So that slowed me up in realizing that wasn't going to work, and so I actually had to take that card out, put the original card back in order to get everything sewed up in time for the broadcast today. Although, if you may notice a little extra background noise here, that's because I didn't have time to reinstall the cover on the PC and place everything back where it belongs. So we've just got an open PC here at my feet that is doing the show for us. But I will keep you abreast of my adventures with this device. I think it has huge potential. And if you're looking for something that will record or stream, you will want to keep up with these videos that we do on a weekly basis. Hopefully by next week, we'll be able to report that we are currently using it. And we'll have to see about how the quality of the video is, that kind of thing. One of the advantages with VidBlaster's recorder is if you suffer from a audio-video sync problem, the VidBlaster recorder has the ability to delay either the audio or the video in order to sync them up. Now, typically it's the video that follows the audio. That is, the audio is just audio. Video is very complicated. Audio is, a tenth the size or less in terms of bandwidth and data. And so the audio typically doesn't have any trouble keeping up. It's the video that ends up getting a little bit behind and can't ever catch up. So VidBlaster can sync that so that your recording is spot on. And I think today we're using 3 frames of delay in our audio in order for it to sync properly in the recording. Now, if there's a sync problem, then this device may not work for me in my particular PC setup because of that video delay. So in that case, I will also want to check into its abilities to do the streaming function, and it may be that ends up being a more important function anyway. As I mentioned at the beginning of this show, I am using Wirecast as the encoder today, and I have been probably for the last couple of months. Pretty impressed with it. The function that I'm using would be present in their base version, which I think is called Wirecast Studio. It's a $500 piece of software, and it does many of the things that VidBlaster does. Plus, it has an encoder built in. I'm just using it for the encoder. It was actually a complimentary copy, so I was happy to give it a whirl. And if it turns out that this guy does a better job of encoding, then I may, or excuse me, if it does the same amount of job in encoding, in terms of the quality of the encoding, but I can offload that CPU usage to this guy instead of Wirecast running on my PC, then I will have accomplished my goal, which is to have more CPU power so that I can do more things. The backdrop behind me, as you probably know, is just green screen with a great graphic popped in. It's an effect module, and it's the effect modules that tend to really eat up CPU usage, especially when it's chroma key and I think multiple picture-in-picture. That tends to affect it too. Now the dual the dual shot and the quad shot don't tend to be very CPU intensive, but if you're doing sometimes I'll do a screen capture for Skype to capture a guest in, and I will sorry, I got distracted by somebody who was having some problems on on their feed. Oh, they got blocked by an authorized adapter. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I hate when that happens. Sorry. Anyway, sorry, I was just rambling on. Well, and again, that's the goal. One man, one PC. Have as many different ways of stretching that PC that are portable and are inexpensive. The Live Gamer Portable is about $140. The Wirecast basic version is $500. So if they both do the same thing, and the Live Gamer Portable from AverMedia ends up saving me CPU, so I can save money and save CPU, that's a good one. If you're in a situation where you're using VidBlaster and Flash Media Live Encoder, and Live Gamer Portable turns out to be a pretty good streamer, you may want to replace Flash Media Live Encoder with the Live Gamer Portable for streaming, and that's going to save, it could be 15-20%, at least on my CPU. So streaming is a big deal. Recording, I think, will probably use a little less resources. So that's I can't really say it's a review, but that's intended use for this device in the future, and I will keep you in touch, keep you up to date with what we end up doing on that in the future. For the last couple of weeks, we've been doing sort of a split show with two half-hour segments. So here in just a minute, we're gonna end this one, take a little break, and then come back with segment number 2. If you're watching us live, just hang around. We'll kind of have just a little cool-off period here in between, an intermission. Yes, an intermission. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then check the YouTube videos and see which one would be next in order chronologically, and that'll be sort of part 2 of today's broadcast. I've been playing around with this format as a way to possibly, and this is sort of an experiment, to possibly make end up 2 shows out of this, with that VidBlaster guy show live, followed by a second show live that would not be VidBlaster specific, and where we end up, really might end up talking more about things like this on that show than on VidBlaster. And actually, this first part of today's show has been sort of the non-VidBlaster part, and coming up to the second part, we'll be talking about the VidBlaster part. So let me break away here for just a minute. We will. I'm going to go ahead and run the closing credits, just like this were an end show, and we'll be back in a few minutes with our next one. So don't go away. We'll be right back.